What's up? Welcome to episode number 133 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choit. If you are new here, what I do is interview people from all walks of life, most often creative types about their lives and careers. The conversation is casual, but I also ask everyone to highlight the people they love, who they admire, who've influenced them, inspired them, or supported them. For more, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. That's peoplewelovepodcast.com. On YouTube, if you're watching, you're there already. Please be sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate that. The Instagram handle is at People We Love Podcast, and I am on Instagram and Twitter at Adam Choit if you want to follow me. Please remember to, of course, subscribe to whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. That is definitely appreciated too. I also have another podcast called the Unofficial Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, all about the 12-piece blues rock soul powerhouse band, Tedeschi Trucks Band. That's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. If you want to follow that, you should definitely check that out. TEDESCHI Trucks Podcast. That's been super fun as well. I enjoyed doing that too. I also have a short film out that I wrote and directed. It's called The Edited, and you can see that on YouTube, and it's also embedded at the movie's official website, theeditedmovie.com. It's a dystopian psychological satire. I won't talk too much about it. I want to get started with today's episode momentarily, but definitely check that out too, theeditedmovie.com. So today's guest for this podcast is a man who's worn many hats over the years, and he's about to join the Kern County, California City Council, and his name is Kelly Carden. Although his journey took him to Reno and Vegas, Kelly was born in the small town of Rosamond, and that's where he lives today. This town has a pretty rich history, and much of it Kelly shares a deep connection to directly through family and friends over several generations. From politics to hotel management to family, we cover a lot, including just how special Rosamond is to Kelly. So let's just get started. Here's Kelly Carden. Okay, so it's good to see you today, Kelly Carden. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Adam, thanks for having me on this morning, man. I'm excited just to kind of chit chat with you. I mean, haven't seen you in a little bit since the last convention.
Yeah, it's been a minute. How you been? Been all right?
Dude, it's been really good, man. I mean, I of course, ran for office, and I'm kind of glad to see that part passed and done with for the next couple of years. I originally was running for the county supervisor here in Kern County. I lost in the primary. That was a bear, man. I did really good. Almost got 30%. I spent hardly any money. He ended up raising about 10 times what I spent. So, I mean, when you start really thinking about how much money these guys have in it, it makes sense why they're so hard to beat. But, then from there, I went in a different route. I refiled for my local town council and actually won a seat by default. Only 3 people filed for the 4 seats. So in January, I'll be sworn into my local town council. So I'm excited about that.
Very cool. Well, congratulations on that. And we'll get into all that in more detail, I'm sure. We can get right into it. Why don't you tell me about kind of your background, where you grew up? And I kind of even asked for people's earliest memories. So you can kind of tell me where you grew up and maybe it's something about your family life and whatnot. And we'll get into it.
Yeah, so I was born in Los Angeles, like most people that live in Southern California. I was actually born in San Pedro, but then my dad died. Unfortunately, when I was 2 months old, he had cancer.
Damn, I'm sorry.
It's what it is to me, man. I mean, I was lucky enough that I was really little when he died, so I don't get hung up on that. But I have older siblings who definitely dealt with it for their whole lives, so I feel bad for them. But my mom moved us here to the desert when I was 9 months old. And I've lived in this little town called Rosamond for the most part since I was 9 months old. I've moved away twice, went to Vegas for 5 years, went to Reno for 5 years. But I always come home, and I live in this little rinky-dink town. It's like this, Adam. The library is named after my 2nd grade teacher.
Wow.
And I was there. I was in 5th grade. I actually got to go, and they took us all out of class, and we got to go watch the library's grand opening with our teacher.
That's cool. What is the nearest major city to where you are?
So I live 83 miles north of downtown Los Angeles, so not too far. But Lancaster is about 11 miles away. And Lancaster is a town of about 250,000 people. So it's a pretty big town. It has everything we need. But living in a small town is different, let me tell you. So when I was a kid, my mom owns her own business. Well, she just retired, so I take that back. She retired about a month ago, but she owned her own business. And I used to regularly get in trouble just walking around because everyone knew my mom. I'd get home that night. What were you doing over on the other side of town? What do you mean, Mom? How do you know I was there? Well, somebody came to the store and told me.
Oh, everybody knows you and everybody knows your mom. They know both of you.
Yeah, so she's been a business owner since 1993. So, and she's been amazed, just a consistent part of the community since then. So it's just, and then my dad, he's even worse. So my dad's lived in the same town since 1965. So it really is a small town to us. We had a lot of the same teachers. For instance, his high school Spanish teacher was my junior high PE teacher. We both had the same high school English teacher. I mean, and then my uncle, he had the same teachers that I had. And then my siblings. And now what's cool though is my kids are having some of the same teachers that I had. And then a lot of my kids' teachers are my friends that I went to school with.
Wow,
So
yeah, that's cool. I mean, I don't know if that's rare, maybe more common in like a small town environment, but that can be special in a way. I mean, as long as these are good teachers and good influences and not just like teachers who are what do you call it, on like tenure or whatever it is.
yeah, we're really insulated from a lot of those things being in Kern County versus LA County, even though it's just 4 miles away. But it's not so bad. I mean, I've known all the members of the school board since I was a kid. Some of them have been on since I was a kid. Others are like guys that I went to school with. So it's just pretty cool being part of a smaller town where you really get to see everything grow. When I was a kid, Adam, we had 3 stoplights. And that was it. And now I think there's like 7.
How many siblings did you say you had?
So I'm the youngest of 5. I have my oldest brother's name is Rodney. He's 57. I have a sister named Christy, who's a year younger than him. My brother William just turned 50. My sister Amber, she's 6 years older than me, and then I'm 37.
Gotcha.
But then my mom actually adopted 2 of my nephews, so I have 2 additional nephew brothers.
So you have basically almost like sort of 7 siblings in some way, and your mom, it sounds like your mom remarried. If I was putting the pieces together.
So yeah, kind of weird. So yeah, she came to America. So she's from the Philippines. She grew up in abject poverty. She was born in a small village outside of Manila. Child laborer, the whole works, but she knew at a young age the only way to get out was to marry an American. So she figured out how to marry an American. She's a survivor and came to America, ended up with 3 kids. They got divorced a handful of years later. And then she traveled a little bit. She came to, became an American citizen over 40 years ago. And she ended up in Iowa. Said, Mom, how do you go from the Philippines to Iowa? She said, man, you should have seen my reaction the first time the snow was taller than her. And from there, she had a chance to work in some really cool restaurants. She actually met George Bush. She met Robert Kennedy. She's got to meet Ted Kennedy, a lot of random people.
Wow.
And she ended up back in Los Angeles. I met my dad. And then right after he unfortunately got sick when she was pregnant with me, and he had melanoma. And he had my sister from his first marriage. And so he ended up getting sick, and it was actually really crappy. I mean, I've only heard the stories, of course, but one of my sisters explained it to me. She said that he thought he had beat it. The doctors told him, hey, you're going to be fine. You'll just see your kid born. You'll to be an old man, be grandpa. And then on Labor Day weekend, in the 2 months after I was born, he got sick and was gone like 10 days later. So they were wrong, but I got lucky. Like I said, I have a stepdad. His name's Tom. And Adam, when you think about the positive qualities that you have of your father, I have all the same ones. My stepdad is really my superhero. He chose to love me and my siblings, even though he didn't have to. Taught me how to fight, taught me how to drive, taught me how to play basketball, hit a baseball, taught me everything, how to shave. I mean, and I bet I can only imagine, he growing up in a small, almost a sundown town, in some ways back when he would have been here. So now he's with the Asian lady. So I'm sure even like his own personal viewpoints on life changed when he met my mom. And I couldn't be any luckier. I actually named my youngest son after him. My youngest son's name is Anderson Lee Thomas. So I took his middle name and named it after my dad. He's, you don't get luckier than that to get a second chance and not miss a beat. we all have family and friends, or we all know somebody who has a horrible relationship with a step parent. And I don't know what that looks like. I only know that I have the coolest dad in the world. And people used to always say, hey, how come your dad doesn't look anything like you? I tell them, oh, it's because he's adopted.
Oh, he's adopted.
It's like, wait, how does that matter? I'm like, well, we were here first. Like, I was already here. We let him join the family.
Yeah, I follow that. Yeah, I mean it sounds like your family obviously suffered some tragedy and loss, obviously, but as well, it seems like there's a lot of love in your family and coming from a lot of different people coming together, or at least in your circle, which is cool. It's what it seems like.
Yeah, it's the whole small town vibe just really changes things. My grandmother, my stepdad's mom, she was a town librarian when he was a kid. So my whole life, I've heard other people tell me stories about my step grandparents, stories about my dad when he was a kid, and it really just grows community to hear those things. We have a little historical society here in town, and once a month they pick a topic and they talk about it, and they give a presentation. It's usually something that's really old here in town. But now that I'm getting a little older, I know all of these things, and I have my own personal inputs and personal experiences, with them. And it's just, I think it's pretty cool, man. I mean, you don't get this experience living in a large city.
It sounds like you're a great person to be on city council, just from like your knowledge of the history of the place, your connection to all the people, and just the fact that you care. And on top of that, you are a smart guy who holds, I'm going to say, the proper positions on pretty much every single issue, just from knowing you from the Libertarian Party and the political world and all that. So that sounds like a lot of things are coming like together, or things come full circle, or make sense. I wanted to ask you though, like it sounds like there's a lot of positives being in a small town, but from your perspective, are there any drawbacks, like, or maybe drawbacks for you specifically in terms of like living in a small town?
Oh yeah. Well, let's especially talk back to like our high school days, right? When there's only 130 kids in your graduating class, there becomes some love triangles and some drama involved.
Right. That's a thing I felt like about high school too. I wasn't from a small town, and Long Island has 3 million people on it, whatever. But when you're living in high school and you're living in like your town and community and your whole life, it feels like the whole world like really does revolve. If I can't be friends with these people, like, well, where am I going to be friends? Where am I going to meet a girl? Where am I going to do this? I'm unhappy here. You're kind of like stuck, but you think that's the whole world at the same time. It's kind of strange in a way.
Yeah, learning how to navigate a small school is kind of interesting too, because I am, you don't miss anything. Everything. Nobody. There's no hiding anything in a small school.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other huge advantages. I was a good athlete, but I wasn't a great athlete. If I had gone to a school with 4,000 kids, I probably wouldn't have been able to play the sports that I did. But going to a smaller school, that talent's a little bit diluted. I got to play whatever I wanted. It's when you go to a smaller school, I think the experience for students improves, just because there's more things for them to do. And because of that, I don't think we saw the bullying that a lot of big schools sees. We definitely had some bullying, but you would see random people like put a stop to it. I didn't like bullies. So I more than once I got into a couple fights growing up that involved a bully that I was going to beat up over something.
That's good to defend what is right and what is righteous. What about, I mean, speaking maybe more chronologically, what do you remember about like elementary school? Like, what kind of kid were you? What were you into as a kid? Like hobbies?
Oh man, so
stuff like that.
Kind of a cool story. My youngest son Anderson, he's actually gonna be 6 tomorrow. His last year he was in transitional kindergarten. They call it TK. He was in the same classroom that I was in for kindergarten.
That's crazy.
And his teacher was next door when I was in kindergarten. It was her first year teaching, and she was in the room next door. And she actually remembered me from when I was 5 years old, walking into class. And I remember actually a lot. So I don't remember my teacher's name. In fact, my kindergarten teacher is the only teacher that I've ever had that for some reason I cannot remember her name. But man, we had, how when you're a little kid and you're reading the books and they do the kite, and every book you read, they add like a tail to your kite. And at the end of the year, whoever reads the most. So I said, hey, Miss Weinberg, can I see inside the classroom? Because like I haven't been in that classroom in 32 years. And she was like, yeah, come on. And she let me go in. And I stood there and I literally I was standing right where my kite was hanging when I was 5 years old. I'll never forget, because I read so many books, they had to keep like tying it up. And so that was pretty cool, being able to like, I vividly remember sitting there. I remember having rock soup when we got told to pick up rocks from outside, and I got in trouble for it. And I was like, no, my teacher told me to. I remember playing on the playground with my friends, and GI Joes, and they actually have some of the same equipment still there. So my son is actually playing on some of the same playground equipment that I played on when I was 5. I mean, I have vivid memories. There was actually so in my school district, it's called a kindergarten senior, and that's somebody who's been in the school district since their kindergarten year to their senior year. There were 23 of us that were kindergarten seniors. And then there were 11 of us that we actually went to preschool together.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'm still friends with a lot of them. My son is friends with some of their kids. My buddy Michael, who and his ex-wife Nicole, we've been friends since we were 4 years old. And now my son Rodney and their daughter are friends.
This must make just things much more special, and these connections like deeper. I mean, I'm sure some people on the outside but you did leave. You did go to. We'll get into Reno and Las Vegas, but like I know some people like, how could you never leave your small town? Don't you get bored? Don't you get this? But when you have like these tight connections with people and these roots and these generational things that people can share, that in a lot of ways is very special and unique and sustaining. And I think that's cool in itself, that you're sharing all these like little things. My son has this commonality with me, and from same classroom, same building from 30 years ago, whatever it is. I think that's something that you guys could share, and that's cool. You have one son?
So I have 4 kids. I have my oldest son's name is Rodney. He's 11. He's in 6th grade. I have a daughter named Naomi. She's 9. She's in 4th grade. My daughter Elisa is 7. She's in 2nd grade. And Anderson is in kindergarten. He's going to be 6 tomorrow.
That's cool.
Yeah. So another random commonality. So my daughter played t-ball last year, and at the first practice, it was her name. The lady's name is Coach Diana, and she hands out bubble gum to all the kids, and she says, "Because t-ball is kind of slow, right? So when you're not playing, focus on chewing your bubble gum." And I looked at my wife and I said, "You know what's crazy? Coach Diana taught me that when I was 6 years old too." She was one of my first coaches when I was a little kid, her and her husband.
Unless otherwise noted, I'm just going to assume that your kids' teachers, coaches, and instructors all were the same for you years ago. Chewing bubblegum, I'm learning, it's actually healthy. Not necessarily the sugar element, but the actual chewing actually does strengthen your jaws and your chewing muscles and all that stuff. It's actually, people don't even know that, but it actually is a good thing, especially for kids actually developing.
Yeah, it's good for helps them learn to speak a little quicker because it strengthens their jawline. They're able to talk more. It strengthens their tongue. Yeah. So have you ever known anyone to chew just way too much bubblegum though?
I don't know about way too much, but I have sometimes put the entire pack in my mouth at the same time.
So I have a buddy that I went to school with here in Rosamond. His name's Derek Carver. He's actually a retired captain from the U.S. Army. He would chew so much gum that it would flex the side of his head, and it was like,
yeah,
it was nuts, man. But Derek, he was a good guy. I've known him for a long time. He's still around. He unfortunately he went and joined the military just like everyone else did. 9/11 was my junior year, so he was a senior, and he was blown up pretty bad with an IED on the side of the road in Iraq, and he lost one of his legs completely and like a chunk out of his other. And I remember him telling the story afterwards, and he said he woke up and he was still on the side of the road, and the medic was checking him out, and he's saying, "Man, is my dick still here?" And he's just like, oh, priorities, right? And now he's considered one of the strongest adaptive athletes in the world. So he's a good buddy of mine. His name is Derek Carver. He's competed at the Arnold Invitational. It's pretty like, I'm so lucky to have grown up alongside people that are overcomers. I mean, he could have sank into depression and PTSD, and instead he leaned into his circumstance, and now he's considered one of the best athletes there is. So pretty cool.
This was a high school friend, you said?
Yeah. So I'll send you the link sometime of him. He's at the Arnold Invitational, and he's got his like his prosthetic leg on, and he's just throwing the weight like it's nothing.
Damn, that's intense and inspiring. Were you around when he came back from Iraq? Did you have when he was going through all the medical trend, issues?
No, so he ended up like getting a scholarship right after high school for football. He went to that for a year or two, and then that's where he went back. So I've talked to him online though quite a bit over the years, but never like we weren't in the same circles. I was in Vegas anyways at that time, so I mean I moved to Vegas the day after my 20th birthday. Couldn't move to place. I couldn't do anything.
What about middle school? Like, and we'll get into high school as well. What kind of kid were you in middle school? Were you into arts, music, or you said sports? It sounded like something
sports.
You were doing.
Sports in school. Like I was really smart. Like I read. I mean, I learned to read when I was like 3 years old. I mean, I walked into preschool reading everything on the walls. The teachers were like, "What the hell?" I read 300 books my first grade year.
Yeah, some of y'all really smart in the LP and in the Mises caucus. Like I was talking to obviously last episode, Zach Kincaid, and he's a well-read dude, been reading for his whole life. I'm just like a dude who watched Ron Paul videos in 2012. I'm like, I'm in. I'm convinced.
Well, Zach Kincaid is one of the most talented people that I've ever met, and I'm so lucky to have gotten to know him, and I consider him to be a really, really good friend of mine. He's helped me write speeches. He's helped me write letters to the editor. I mean, I can't even believe that I've been lucky enough to meet guys like you and Renetta and Angela and all these people. And you know what's crazy is the only reason I met you guys is because Matthew Butts harassed the hell out of me until I finally went to a meeting.
He's good at it. Everyone kind of finds their role in this world and in this community, and it's cool to see. Were you actually a good student in school? Or were you said you were. It sounded like you were. Because some people just like to read and learn on their own, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily good students.
So I was a really good student through high school, like through junior high, like no problem. But then I started having some problems in high school and we never figured it out. At some point along the way, I developed a pretty serious hearing loss. And I really struggled in high school. And I think it was because I just couldn't keep up taking notes. Like I would get A's on all the tests, but I would never turn any homework. I never did any homework at all. I thought that was the biggest waste of time. So I just get A's and B's on all my tests and just pass with D's and C's. I didn't really care to be there. And I thought I was going to go in the military. After 9/11 happened, I for sure was going in the Navy. And that's when I actually found out I was hard of hearing was I went to MEPS. I had taken my ASVABs. I think they were still scoring them on a scale of 100. And I got like a 98 or 99. And they offered me all the jobs I wanted. Then I showed them my grades. They offered me a handful of jobs. But I was going to go into military intelligence. I was going to be a cop. That was what I figured I would do, right? And then I went to MEPS in LA, and I they put you up in the nice hotel for the night before, and they send you the next day to the processing center. And I took all the tests, and one of the last tests of the day was the hearing test. And I'll never forget, I walked out of the booth, and the guy administering the test said, "Hey, Carden, why didn't you push the button that much?" And I said, "Because it didn't beep." And he said, "Oh, fuck." And yeah, I ended up I'm pretty deaf. So the last time I had a hearing test done, the doctor said if he didn't know me, if I wasn't there to present with it, he would assume that I was a man at the end of my career who'd worked in like a metal shop his whole life.
Interesting.
Yeah,
you sound like you're hearing me okay. Is it just one ear or is it just dim? What does it actually sound like on your end?
I have a constant ringing usually, but the biggest thing is if there's extra people talking, if there's an echo, if there's a lot of things going on, then I struggle to follow on whoever I'm listening to. And you'll hear me repeat myself, "Hey, what? Say that again," and I'll lean into people. So this whole mask bullshit over the last 2 years, let me tell you, these motherfuckers with their bullshit mask theory on the box says doesn't work on COVID. All that they did was terrorize deaf people. Absolutely terrorize deaf people.
I didn't even really think of that because it's hard for me to sometimes understand what the hell these people are saying with behind the mask. But yeah, for someone who's hard of hearing, that must be
for months.
Very frustrating.
Adam, I wouldn't go outside because I would get irritated with people who I couldn't understand. my wife would go with me and translate for me. Like I'd look at her and they'd tell me what these people are saying. And so like, especially towards the end, and as I started getting a little bit more emboldened, especially through the LP, I started telling people, you do know that you're discriminating against deaf people, right?
I'm going to use that.
And they're like, oh. And like when I was giving speeches, one time when I was giving a speech at one of the events when I was running for supervisor, they asked me to put on a mask. And I said, okay, where's the translator? And they pointed out the Hispanic the Spanish speaking translator. And I said, no, where's your sign language translator? And they said, well, we don't have one. I said, well, then I'm not going to cover my mouth because that's the only way that deaf people would be able to hear me, to understand me. And I was like, are you suggesting that we discriminate against hard of hearing people now? And then they're kind of like, oh, that's not a good idea. Like, we can't do that. Like, I think we should have been looking into more things like that. One thing that the left does really well, Adam, is they're not afraid to like, litigate everything. Some things we should do the same. If that's the only thing that they understand, then why aren't we playing that card back at them? Regularly. That's what I do.
Yeah, it's kind of like I guess the stuff with like some of the DeSantis policies. It's like the pure libertarian policy would be, it'll be like, oh, well, we don't want to force people to, we don't want to force mandates, whether it's vaccines or masks or whatever. But like some people go in the opposite direction. Like, we want to mandate that you can't like, have mask mandates or vaccine mandates at a place of business or whatever, which definitely is the better position. But at the same time, it's actually, you're forcing people to make a decision. But if it's going to be one of them, let it be that one. And sometimes that's what you have to do to, I guess, fight back, is to push back, further in the opposite direction.
Yeah. So we were talking about junior high. We were talking about middle school. So middle school was cool. I got really big into math in middle school. And I was actually in the mathletes. So I did that competition wise. What else did we do? I played sports, basketball. You know what I got to do in 8th grade, Adam? That was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done, is we played the stock market game.
I remember that is fun. That was fun. I did that too.
And we, what year did you graduate high school?
2000.
Okay, so you were a senior my freshman year. So you would have been a junior my 8th grade year. So that year, I actually, my junior high team won the entire state. Very
cool. What did you invest in, if you remember?
Dude, so I vividly remember. So we sat in alphabetical order. So it was Nicholas Anton was on my team. He was the first person in the row. Matthew Blaine was on my team. He was in front of me, and then Kelly Carden, right? A, B, C. And we said, we'll just be on a team together, because Nicholas was kind of weird, so he didn't have a lot of friends, but he was one of my best buds. I'd known him since kindergarten. And so I said I'd be on my team. And then we said, okay, we'll just let Nicholas aside, because he's like the crazy smart kid. And he's like, oh yeah, we'll invest in HP, Microsoft, and then we had to invest into 5. And I don't remember what the others were. But I would wake up every morning and I would turn on the news and I would just watch the ticker for like 2 hours every morning. And I would just notice which numbers were going up and up and up. And I noticed AOL every day was going up like 7 points, 9 points. And then one day I'm watching the news and it starts talking about a stock split. And I'm 13 years old. I don't know what the hell a stock split is. So I'm like, okay, it went up another $9 and they're talking about a stock split. So I got to school and I ran to the teacher's office and I said, Mr. Vogenthaler, what's a stock split? And he goes, oh, that's good. That's where they give you 2 stocks for every one that you have. And I said, oh, so I went and found Nick. I went and found Matt. I said, hey, we got to sell everything we have and let's buy all of the AOL we can. And we did that day, and we bought it. And 4 days later, it split the stock, and we ended up making $177,000 off it.
Not real money and fantasy football type points competitive.
But it was hilarious, man. I got to do that. So we got to go to the Pacific Stock Exchange in Los Angeles. We were in the paper. They actually, up until just a couple of years ago, it was still in my junior high office. When you walked in, the picture of us was still there. And now they remodeled and it's gone. So we're looking for it.
Sounds like growing up, I mean, besides the reading and the math and the stock market and sounds like probably some intellectual curiosity and all this stuff. Were you sort of different from some of the other kids in your class, in your town, in your school in terms of that? Or was everybody seemingly fairly, like curious people who were interested in these topics and math and wanting to learn more? Like, is like learning, do people value learning in your town in the same way that you seem to?
I don't know. The kids that I hung out with did. But again, even that's weird, right? All of every friend that I have is a 30-year friendship. So it's a little different. My one of my buddies growing up, Travis Hunsaker, he was the smartest kid I knew. He finished first grade math in like 3 months. 6 years old, I'll never forget him going to the next math book. I was like, what the heck? So I hung out with a lot of really smart kids, but I had a lot of buddies who just wanted to hang out. They chase girls.
Yeah.
I didn't get myself into trouble like that too often. I didn't do too good with the girls until I was older.
I'm still working on it.
I was nervous. I was shy. I had a crush on Myra Varela since 3rd grade. Man, and we're still friends. She's a nurse at the local hospital. She's been with her husband since they were in like 7th grade or 8th grade, man. It's talk about a long-term, like a Boy Meets World Topanga and Corey relationship. So, but yeah, it was kind of cool, man. I mean, we drive around town but even though there's connections there, right? So one of my best friends growing up, her name was Brianna Gutierrez. Her aunt and my dad dated in high school.
One big happy family. I already figured out what I'm going to title this episode later. I'll tell you about that later. What about, I'm curious about, I guess, because you said like as soon as like shortly after 9/11, that's when a lot of people did want to enlist and support the country, and some opinions and people have evolved on those original positions. But what was like the politics of your town like at the time?
So I live in the most conservative district in California.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna guess, because if you're enlisting right after 9/11, that must have and you're from this sort of insular small town. I was kind of
So Kevin McCarthy is my congressman, to give you just an idea of the neocon thought process that we have here. Before him was a man named Bill Thomas, who was certainly a Republican. He was a Republican. Now he probably leans almost more left, but that's more indicative of just the Republican Party has gone so far and right that everybody's left, right?
Yeah.
But then it's equally weird because the Democrats have gone so far left that everybody's right now. I mean, holy shit. When we talk about the duopoly not making sense, there's no part of it that is even explainable. But so yeah, my dad and my mom are both conservatives. I remember my mom voting for Bill Clinton the first time, but ever since then she's pretty much always voted Republican, at least publicly, that she talks about. My dad has gotten better, but he was almost a neocon for a long time too. But I mean, justified, America's justified in its actions overseas. But I mean, he's kind of backed off that. He's realizing that Trump is just as much of a crook as the rest. The allure of Trump has kind of finally gone away for a lot of people.
I think so. It seems like it. Like it seems like his time has passed, and his base is, I don't know if his base is turning on him or if he's turning on his base, but like
he's eating his base alive. It's nuts. I mean, these guys are crazy,
Yeah, it's wild times for sure. But I mean, he did serve a purpose, I think, in red pilling a lot of conservatives in terms of like the media and the police and all these things, and realizing that these institutions are corrupt and a lot of the times do not have our best interests at heart, and often just trying to protect themselves and those in their universe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So running for office in Kern County was interesting because the Republicans are really open to me, and as far as organizationally wise, but where the Democrats were not. But I definitely would go to these meetings and they would say, "Oh, you just sound like a Republican." So let's just, because that's what you want to talk about. But we can talk about any other thing, and I probably won't sound as Republican to you. And they said, oh, okay. But they would always ask, why didn't you just run as a Republican? So what do you supposedly believe in? What are the top 3 things that Republicans are supposed to believe in? The Second Amendment, balanced budgets, and a free economy, right? Free markets. They didn't do any of them.
Yeah.
You know, and then you just lay it out. So, okay, Second Amendment wise, Trump was a supporter of red flag laws. He was a supporter of expanded background checks. He supported banning accessories that were used by females and disabled males primarily to make
bump
shooting
stocks or something, bump stocks magazines or something. You would know
Yes,
more than
things
me.
like that allow extenders, things that allow smaller individuals to shoot firearms in the same way that large individuals can. He supported all of those things. He nominated a huge gun grabber to lead the ATF in 2017. I mean, the guy was a joke. You know, he spent more money than any other president in 2020, and obviously there's going to be, you know, hey, it's not really all his fault, even though he should have vetoed that at least the first time. But he had deficits every other year too. Outrageous deficits. And they certainly don't believe in free markets. No. I mean, through all of their subsidies, you know, you'll still have every day a Republican will tell you that the only subsidized energy markets in America are renewables, but the most heavily subsidized market there is oil and gas. Outside of the military industrial complex, because obviously all of it is subsidized.
So much cronyism. What a mess. So tell me about, like, you know, high school transitioning into your early 20s. You said you were planning on joining the military, but then you moved to, I think, Vegas. So what was going on in that time in your life?
Oh man, so high school comes along, and I'm not a very good student anymore. I didn't really care for school, so I just did the bare minimum.
Like me.
Yeah, I felt it was so unnecessary. I didn't, you know, and I had really good teachers. A couple of them still follow me. Some of my old teachers actually voted for me. That was pretty cool, earning their votes. Some of them did not. I had one teacher that really thought he was going to corner me on COVID at a school board meeting. That was my old math teacher. And he said, you know, Kelly, I just support the vaccine mandates for students so that every kid in Kern County doesn't have to worry about dying from COVID. And I looked at him and I said, Mr. Qualman, if we vaccinated every student in Kern County, how many kids that died from COVID would not have died? And he said, all of them. I said, well, not a single kid in Kern County died from COVID. So if you have a problem with my math, talk to my junior high math teacher.
Which is him.
Yes, you know. And he didn't like that at all. But I don't give a shit, dude. That's on you, right? Like, you're the one who wants to do something stupid and you got to defend it.
Yeah. Okay. So we found one teacher you don't like.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and I don't have a single teacher that I didn't like.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, but so high school, you know, junior high comes along. I'll never forget the day 9/11 happens. I woke up late that morning. My buddies Nathan and Matt, who I'm still good friends with, they actually woke me up banging on my bedroom window. It was like 6:40 in the morning. Da, 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 da. Wake up! God, look at the TV. Turn the TV on. So I wake up. I get them into the house. They turn the TV on right as the second plane is crashing into the second tower. The TV had been on for like 2 minutes. Like, I just turned it on and seen it happen live. And just remember, like, holy shit. And Matt says, well, shit, dude, it looks like next year we're going to war. Because we were, you know, after our senior year. So I tried, man, and I was going to go in. And that's when I found out I was hard of hearing.
Right.
And it really threw everything off because I wasn't a good student, right? So I knew I didn't want to go to college. And so I thought, well, my way out is going to be the military because that's how most people from poorer neighborhoods think they get out of life is through the military. And then when that was taken away from me, it was like really, really crippling. I walked around pretty upset for a while. I didn't even graduate with my class. I ended up just, graduating at summer school. I just wasn't a good student at all. And but high school ends, and my buddy had owned a pizzeria. His parents helped him buy a pizza place, so he gave me a job. And then I find out that I'm good at everything. Yeah, you go to work and like everything's easy, right? So I started making pizzas. First, I was just delivering pizzas. Then I said, hey, I need to make more money. So I started learning how to cook. Within months, I'm running 2 restaurants.
Wow.
You know, I'm 18 years old. I'm commuting to Santa Clarita every day to run restaurants for a guy down there. I did that for a couple of years. I moved to Vegas when I was turned 20, and I started working in hotels. That was, man, let me tell you, I should probably write a book someday about the things that I've seen and experienced working in hotels in Vegas and Reno.
I can only imagine. Just share one anecdote of something notable.
Nah,
Too many
man.
Vegas stories.
So okay, the first time I ever met a celebrity. All right, it was, who was it? It was Vanessa Carlton, and I don't even know the name of her song, but it's a song from White Chicks. And so she's checking into the Four Queens, and I was like a relief supervisor. Like if somebody didn't show up, I was a supervisor for the day. They paid me an extra $2 an hour. But I went to the bathroom, and she's standing over next to the manager at the Canyon Club, because there's a Canyon Club. You know, we have those here in LA, but we had a Canyon Club in Vegas at the Four Queens. And I didn't know who she was, and we're talking. And the manager says, "Kelly, why can't she check in with her dog?" Bitch, like, what you mean? Like, it's a hotel. You can't check in with your dog. So I said, and listen, unless she's someone special, she's not checking with the dog. And I just started walking past, and she starts laughing at me. And I turn around, and the girls just kind of like, can't believe this happened. The manager is like full on like in tears laughing at me, because she knows that I'm not any kind of mean person at all. And she points at the wall behind me, and I turn around the long way, and it's a 6.5 foot tall poster of this woman that's standing there.
I figured.
And I looked at her, I said, "Okay, let me go get this taken care of. I'll get your dog checked in right now."
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. I met Ron Jeremy. That was actually an interesting experience. The little short fat porn star. He came down. He calls down, and the caller ID says Ron Jeremy. So I pick it up, and he goes, "Hey, it's Ron Jeremy." I said, "The Ron Jeremy?" He goes, "Yeah, man, it's me." So he goes, "Do you have a copy maker, a copy machine?" I said, "Of course I have a copy machine. It's a fucking hotel." So he comes down, and he asks if I can help him. And so I was going to lunch anyway. So I went to my lunch break, and instead I helped him make copies. And it was making copies of all of the IDs of the women he'd worked with over the last like 6 months.
Wow.
And then he tipped me $100. So
how many copies did you make?
Oh man, it took the whole hour, the entire lunch break.
Oh man.
Like,
of all the women he worked with, I'm putting up air quotes.
Yeah, it worked. You know, the whole time he's got the commentary. "You should have seen this one. This one was the best." And I'm just like, oh my God, this is Ron Jeremy. And this is hilarious.
Yeah, not the classiest stuff, but also like that's I appreciate you sharing that. Just funny stories, funny anecdotes.
Yeah, and working in hotels is really political. It's easy to get tips or to get upgrades. So I had just started working in a hotel, and the best boss I ever had was actually at the Four Queens in Las Vegas. He was a little Indian guy named Syed Soban. He cool as hell. And I'd been working there for a couple months, and he says, "Kelly, you're really smart. Like, you really figured this out fast." And he says, "You should learn how to do the night audit." And what the hell's a night audit? Right. And so the way hotels work is the date doesn't change at midnight, because it's based on the night of the stay. Right. So just because midnight's come doesn't mean it's the next day. Check-in's at 3 p.m. So then the night auditor goes in, and they actually have to manually change the date in the hotel system, and it posts all the pay and all the room charges and everything. So it's like the most important job that a hotel has. And he says, you have to learn to do it, because once you learn how to do the night audit, you'll never look for work, because any city you move to, if you type in night auditor online, you'll find a job. And it was just these kind of little skills that I learned, so I learned how to do the night audit. So I've always been able to make sure I have a good job. And he just insisted on teaching me these things. But he was cool because his father was like almost royalty in Bangladesh, in the UK. And he used to tell us these cool stories about growing up in Bangladesh and like castles and shit. And he was just the coolest little guy. He's still around. I'm still friends with him on Facebook. If he listens to this, he'll be like, "Yeah, why do you still have to call me a little guy?"
So his dad was managing, for lack of a better term, castles, and then his son, your boss, was managing American castles. Our version, those are kind of the American versions of castles. Is our like Vegas, our hotels.
Well, yeah, and
In a
you
lot
can
of
lock them
ways.
down in minutes. In 50 seconds, you can lock down a hotel, nobody in or out. I mean, you can castle those things down. The bigger ones have armories in them. They have jail cells in them. Like, they're intense.
I
Like,
believe it. I remember in the movie The Fugitive, like when the Harrison Ford character was in the hotel, they kind of like were able to lock down, like you're saying, just lock down the hotel, do it fast in a fiction
yeah.
world. So I imagine in real time, real world, the same.
Oh man, so another Vegas crisis, everyone's been through it. I was working inside the stratosphere when somebody threw themselves off the top of the stratosphere.
Damn.
Man, that's something that happens a lot. You would never realize how many people die in Vegas hotel rooms.
No, I believe it, because they're downstairs at the casino and they lose all their money and they get in the elevator and don't take the elevator back down.
Yeah, so I saw my first dead body in a Vegas hotel.
Damn.
That wasn't like a coffin, that's different. Oh yeah, I saw that happen a couple times, unfortunately. So you guys, did you go to a convention in Reno?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was actually the hotel manager at that hotel.
Not during the convention though, but at some previous.
Not during the convention, but in the past, like I worked there from 2015, 16, and 17 as a hotel manager at the Nugget, and I saw that, man. All sorts of shit would happen there. I mean, we had a guy. I'll never forget this time. The security comes in, and they said, "Hey Kelly, we need to go check out a room. Can you come with us? And we need to figure out how much to charge these people." They had wrecked a room. It's like, I'm like, nope, let's charge them. And I go downstairs. They're still in the hotel. We just have changed their rooms. So I'm like, no, we're going to kick them out. So I grab a couple of security officers. We're going to go kick these fuckers out of the hotel. The door opens and this Hispanic guy opens the door, but I wasn't expecting him. I was expecting a little white guy. And so he goes, what? And then the security officer says, back up. And then he looks down and he starts pointing at the ground for me. And the guy's been cooking IDs, bags and bags of fake IDs. And there's like in the corner, it was a motorcycle gear stacked to the ceiling. It was like 6 feet tall of motorcycle gear. It was nuts. So security arrests him. Come to find out, the guy had been stealing mail in Reno, but the name he used was a name of a frequent guest, and the guest didn't match him. It was a 6'8", 340-pound black man, and this guy was like smaller than you. And so they go to arrest him, and so we call police, and we're there for hours, dude. Like they're cataloging all of this stolen stuff, and he finally comes back to the desk, and he never shows up at the room, which is nuts. 6 hours later, he never comes back to the room, and he shows up at the desk, and he's trying to flirt with one of the girls at the front desk. And so she calls me and she texts me, "Hey, he's here." So I call security and they grab him. The first thing he does is he starts talking shit. "Get the fuck off of me." And then the guy says, "Is this your name?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "What if I told you that name belonged to a man who is 6'9", 350 pounds, who regularly frequents the hotel?" And he starts crying.
The guy started crying?
Starts like ugly crying. Like, wow. I thought he was going to pass out. He was crying so hard.
That's kind of funny to me, though.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, but then I kind of learned when I was kind of a jerk, man. So all of the police detectives knew that if they were to come to the hotel and ask me to find somebody, that if they were in the hotel, I could guarantee you I could find them. Then I started realizing, man, I was finding all these people in my hotel without any warrants.
You're a narc.
What the hell, man?
But it all seemed like they did deserve to be found and
sometimes, but like now my thoughts on due process, I don't know that I would be able to do that now.
Right. Yeah, it seems. Yeah, we'll get into it. It seems like some of your ideas and thoughts on police and searching and weed maybe and the military and war and all this stuff has evolved. So I'll let you continue on your journey, after that Vegas thing or Reno, Ghetto Vegas.
Well, we got to go back to Vegas because if I don't talk about this part of my life, then I'm really not doing any of my story, any real justice. So I went to Vegas, and you're gonna laugh because I cursed a little bit, and obviously I smoked weed, but I got really big into my faith when I was living in Vegas. Like I actually went to seminary. I've almost completed my biblical studies degree. I only have a couple credits left, and if I want to finish that, I actually worked as a youth pastor in the inner city. I lived in the projects, Adam, for like 2.5 years.
Damn.
And I've been arrested in front of my own house in the projects for, the cop assumed that I was in the wrong place because I wasn't the right color. I've been pulled over. Shoot, man, the first time I got pulled over for matching a weak description, I was 16. And I got pulled out of a car at gunpoint for being a heavy-set Hispanic male in a red sports car. Like, first off, I'm not Hispanic, but whatever. I'm brown. I get it. If that's all you're looking for, that's enough. I live in Southern California. Do you know how many heavy-set Hispanic males drive red sports cars in Southern California?
I'm gonna look out my window and see one going by probably
right now. Look. So I've been pulled over under that vague description 13 times in my life.
Wow.
And once in front of my school, that was pretty fucking humiliating. So, well, whatever. But yeah, so Vegas, I lived in Vegas. I actually worked at the third largest church in Nevada. It's called the International Church of Las Vegas. It's it was something else. But I worked at a place called the Dream Center. They have an LA Dream Center here. It's at the Old Lady of Angels Hospital next to Echo Park. And but so that was pretty cool, man. I really got to when the first time you knock on somebody's door to offer help and the door opens and there's no furniture, everything in your life changes. It has to. I'll never forget, going to another house and, oh, this is a good one, man. It was Christmas. We were doing Christmas giveaways because that's what we did, right? We just met needs. You need baby supplies, we're gonna give you baby supplies. It's Christmas, we're gonna help you with toys and trees. And we had projects that we would go to, and this one project was my personal favorite project. It was just, there were a group of kids there that I really got along well with. And we walk up to this door, and it's me and 4 other kids, and we've got like trash bags of toys. I've got a box with a light up Christmas tree on my shoulder. And this mom, this single mom opens the door, and she's really confused, like, what's going on? Like, and she goes, Kelly, I've seen you. Like, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, well, somebody signed up all the kids. And her oldest son had come around the corner and said, Mom, when I didn't want to tell you, but when you were gone yesterday, I took all the kids to over there and we signed them up for Christmas presents. And she goes, I've not been telling my kids it's Christmas because I can't afford anything this year. And your life changes when you see these things, because how do you experience these kinds of wants and needs and this kind of hurt without being moved,
Right.
And I'm kind of crying a little bit. And it was really just special to be parts of these interactions, bringing couches to this house. Oh my gosh, the first house that I mentioned, it was middle of summer. We knock on the door, and we were inviting everybody to a barbecue. Is what we're doing. We're going to make 2,000 hot dogs and give away hot dogs to the entire neighborhood. And they open the door, and all the kids are sitting on pillows, like throw pillows, and they're watching a pink Barbie TV, like a 13-inch pink Barbie TV on a milk crate. And they're eating something ridiculous off of like paper plates, right? And we closed the door, and I looked at the other guy and I said, let's go to the warehouse and I'll ask for forgiveness later. And I took couches from our warehouse. I took beds, blankets. I mean, we filled their entire apartment in the projects with everything they needed to be able to provide a home for their kids, and that's, I think, why I'm the way I am, is because not only I was really kind of spoiled growing up, but I've always been surrounded with these tales of poverty from my mom and my family. But to finally at 23 years old experience it was really kind of life-changing for me.
To see it firsthand and be able to help seems like that was also very profound.
Yeah, I mean, the first time, so we would do a huge Thanksgiving banquet every year, and we fed 10,000 meals one year.
Wow, this is all in Vegas, right?
This is
You said.
Vegas. Yeah, we fed 10,000 meals in Vegas where we bust people in. We would host missions trips. So, like, people would send their kids from their youth groups to Vegas, and I would put them on a missions trip, a service trip for the week. And these kids would, I would tell them, you know, you're going to go home to your fancy rooms and you're going to be able to close your door and talk on the phone with your friends. But these kids are still here and I'm still fighting with them, you know?
I want
So
to ask, I want to ask you sort of a not out there question, but like a broader question. Like, I don't know if there's like a war on religion, but it seems like Christianity and religion is obviously not as popular in the United States as atheism is on the rise. And do you think part of it is like because the government really does want everyone, especially on the left side of things ideologically, they really want people to be dependent on the government? And in this sense, if like with all this charitable work that churches like that you've been a part of do and other private organizations just helping people, like that's in some way like competition. You think that's part of it? Like, you know, churches and private companies and private individuals offering these services is actual competition to the government wanting dependence on them? Is it literally like a competitive thing, even why there's such a not a
so maybe for
demonization of
sure.
religion, but like people are less into it
I think
just
so a
these
little bit.
days?
I mean, so understand that there's a couple things that comes to the government. When government becomes a customer, everything gets expensive for everyone, right? When government becomes the largest customer, they're the only ones who can afford anything. But their goal is to be the only customer, right? So they have to buy everything for us. And certainly there is competition there, but I think the bigger problem with Christianity is the uneven application of our faith. And what I mean by that is the divorce rate's higher in church marriages than in unchurched marriages. You know, when you work in a casino and you know there's a Christian conference coming in, you know you just made tens of thousands of dollars in pornographic video fees. Guaranteed.
Real? Wow.
Guaranteed. Yeah, like it's wide known that when church comes to town, people watch more porn in the hotels. It's really weird, you know. So
Do they
I
know you can get porn very much for free on any computer or phone? Why like do people still buy porn in hotels? You're telling me yes, but like I'm like surprised why. It's just because like, well, I'll let you explain why. Why
so
it
I
is.
don't know that I don't have a why for that. It just is the way it is. But with that said, I haven't worked in a hotel since 2018. And obviously with cell phones, I don't know why, but in 2016, 2017, it was still for sure. Like that was just a widely known thing. When church groups come, people watch more porn, you know, people drink more alcohol. I think if we just had a more even application of our faith, that it wouldn't matter what the government would do or say. We would be people would look at Christians as being charitable and being honorable and being moral people. But I think what happens is, and I always try to take blame for myself, right? I always try to be in perspective. I try to play devil's advocate with everything. I think it's senseless for Christians to worry about what the government's doing to Christians to make it harder for us to be impactful. We need to look at our own lives and say, how are we not, you know, misapplying our faith? And that's what's really cheating us from the opportunity to outreach.
Yeah. So
That's what the mission is, right? That's what the Great Commission is how do people look at you and say, okay, well, what's this guy doing a little bit different? You know, and Adam, this is probably the most like I don't talk about my faith very much. This is actually pretty cool. You know, but so I think there's that. I think as Christians, if we could learn how to just be more consistent, you know, I think that what the government does to try to silence Christianity would become irrelevant if Christians were just more consistent.
I follow. Everyone needs to step up their game in some regard, but self-reflection, that's hard, and self criticism and all these kinds of things. What about after Vegas? I'll try to keep the train moving along.
I moved back home, so I came home and I opened a restaurant. I actually met Shauna. She is the mom of most of my kids. She is my life partner. You know, um, she walked into a restaurant, and so the same buddy that I worked for before, I came back to Rosamond, and he gave me a job working for him while I was opening my own restaurant.
What year was this?
Yeah, this would have been 2006.
And you have
No,
you
no,
been
this would
in
be 2009.
and that's where you've been since?
No, so we'll jump around again. Really
Okay.
so I was working in the restaurant on Cinco de Mayo 2010 actually, and this white girl walked in with a big butt, and I said, man, she's really pretty. But I told the other guy that I was working with, hey man, Ray, that girl's really cute. But I would never in a million years hit on somebody at work, right? That is way too lacking in professionalism. I would never do that. But Ray, on the other hand, he would. So he goes to the door and he says, hey, the guy making your food thinks you're cute. You should give him your number. And she did. She gave me a number. We actually went to the movies that night on Cinco de Mayo 2010. We went and watched the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. And then we went to Denny's and we had hot chocolate. And then we put this together for the most part ever since. But we got pregnant right away. Unfortunately, I love my son. But she got scared and we actually separated for a little bit. And I ended up having Naomi. But then I moved to Reno shortly after my son was born. So in like 2013, I moved to Reno. And I had Naomi here and Rodney there. And then Sean and I got back together. We had 2 more kids. So my timeline's kind of weird, but my oldest and my 2 youngest belong to Shauna. And then Naomi has a different mom. But she lives here in town. Their house is like 100 yards away from my house. So Naomi sees my kids every day. I see her all the time. Opened my business in Tehachapi, California. Ended up selling it to move to Reno. And Reno was cool. I'd never lived in the snow before. First time I ever went to jail was in Reno. Only time I ever went to jail.
What was it for? If you would like to
say,
you brought it up.
I was driving from Reno. I was going to come back here to get the rest of my stuff to go back to Reno. And I got pulled over in Minden, California. He said I was going 59 and a 55.
Come on, bro.
And it had previously been a 65, so I hadn't slowed down far enough in enough time. Pulled me over going 4 miles per hour over. My license was suspended. And it's my own fault. I was ignorant to how this worked. I had fallen behind on my child support, but I had gotten caught back up, and the child support had released my license. But I was ignorant to the fact that when that happens, you still have to go to the DMV and reinstate your license. It's like another $55. So I didn't know, and he took me to fucking jail over it. For 4 days, I was there.
Wow.
And it was nuts. It was cool. If you're gonna go to jail, go to Minden and go to jail there first. You get kind of accustomed to being there. But it was whatever. It wasn't like a horrible experience. Everyone else in the cell block was like, wait, what are you here for? And they all felt like bad for me. When I was like, bro, for fucking driving 4 miles an hour over. They're like, that's nuts. So Monday comes along and I finally get to court. And I go in front of the judge and the court clerk reads the charges. Mr. Carden is being accused of driving in excess of driving 59 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone with a suspended license. And the judge goes, wait, can you say that again? And she repeats it again. And he looks at me and he goes, Mr. Carden, am I to understand that you've been here since Thursday for driving 4 miles an hour too fast? And I said, yes, sir. And dude, I'm like shackled. And I'm like, yes, sir. And he looks at me, kind of like shakes his head and blinks a couple times, and he hits the gavel, goes, time served, case dismissed. And it says next, and then the DA jumps up like almost angry and goes, Your Honor, there's still the case of him driving too fast. And the judge goes, you held him in jail for 4 days for 4 miles an hour over. I think he's paid enough.
What an asshole, that DA.
I couldn't believe it, dude. It was like, are you kidding? But yeah, the cop took me to jail. And even so, the cop pulled me over and he called in his sergeant to come arrest me. And the sergeant puts me in a bigger vehicle so I'd be more comfortable. And the whole time the sergeant's like, I'm really sorry about this. I can't believe he called this in. And I remember telling him, like, you're the superior officer with agency. You can take me right back to my car and send me home.
And what did he say to that?
He was like, I can't really do that. And I was like, yes, you can. Like, if you don't think I should be going to jail right now, then take me back to my car. But I mean, what justice was possibly served, right? Like, and how much money was wasted? $2,000 for 4 days for me to not pay anything.
So wasteful and stupid, wasting everybody's time.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Also, Reno was cool. This is something that actually I talk about regularly as a libertarian. I used to work at a company called Great Call, and they make cell phones and safety devices for old people. And they would maintain medical lists, like medication lists for people. And one time I had a lady call, and I'm helping her update her medication list. And Adam, she took 37 pills every day. She took pills to treat her Parkinson's, and the side effect of the pills were tremors. So she had to take more pills to stop those tremors.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she's taking, and not all of her medication, some of them are supplements because she can't eat anything because of all the pills she's taking. I just remember thinking, like, man, lady, if you just smoked a bowl, like, you'd be able to eat. You'd stop shaking. Like how are we not realizing that we're poisoning people? So that was a cool job. I actually got to talk to a lot of really cool old people with that job. I talked to a guy who he was a spy during World War II. He actually sent me his book.
Cool.
Man, I've seen so many random things, man.
Yeah, what a life. What stories. What a journey you've had, and not in a straight line. Your journey has been all kinds of, it's hard to describe, but you're doing a good job of it.
Yeah, man. I mean, geez. Oh, I mentioned Boy Meets World, Corey and Topanga. I met Topanga once. So I was working in Vegas. It was at the Green Valley Ranch Resort and Casino in Henderson, Nevada. It's like a high-end hotel, and I worked graveyard there. I worked 4 10s there. I worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. No, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And it was a cool job, man. It was the first time I ever made over $1,000 a paycheck. It was like, that was pretty cool in like 2007. And I get in the hotel and the phone rings for the bell desk, but there wasn't any bellman there, so it transferred to the front desk. The phone says Danielle Fishel. What the hell? No way. Pick up the phone. Hey, this is Danielle Fishel. And I immediately said, Topanga?
Yeah, you said that?
Yeah.
And she goes, she gets it every 5 seconds. She probably gets it every 5 seconds. It's hard.
All the time. And she goes, it's me. And I said, oh, cool. How can I help? And she goes, we just need our bags. And I said, okay, well, give me your ticket number. I'll bring your bags. And I said, hey, do you need a smoking room? Like, they were in a random, like, cheap ass smoking room in the hotel. It made no sense at all. Usually you upgrade celebrities. And she goes, no, this is what they said they had. And we're not complaining. I said, oh, I got you. So I got her bags and I got new keys and I put them in one of the nicest rooms in the hotel, a 4,000 square foot villa. And she tipped me $100.
Nice. Now I'm figuring out how the game works a little bit in the hotel management. You're not losing money or you as a hotel employee are not losing money by upgrading a guest. You're gaining something personally by getting a tip for helping them out. I follow. Makes sense.
Well, yeah, especially with like A-list celebrities, you definitely want to keep them coming back. But most hotels run the policy of trying to strategically upgrade people because most hotels sell more rooms than they have, so they have to use the suites anyways. So like a really good hotel manager is going to allow their employees to make some money. Not within reason. Don't go selling suites when you can actually upgrade them for a cheap price. But like when I worked at the Four Queens, my boss would upgrade people wearing Purdue Boilermaker gear because he went to the University of Purdue.
Yeah, it could be anything, just some kind of personal connection. I want to hear a little bit more about like sort of your political journey. And I could see kind of a few of the moments that you've described, especially with the police and some of these things as far as, and maybe the wars later on that kind of like maybe changed your political views. Because I'm guessing that you grew up fairly conservative to some degree, like your family and people in town, and then somehow became this liberty-minded person involved and engaged. So how did the political journey and your worldview like change or evolve over the years, and when did that happen?
So this is going to be a good part of the conversation. So I was on the Jack Lloyd show, and he kept wanting me to say that I'd like read something profound. And it really wasn't anything profound,
It
any
wasn't a
specific
moment.
moment. It
Yeah.
was a lifetime of experiences as I was growing up and maturing that really led me to become to where I am. Because you're absolutely right. I certainly started off incredibly conservative, almost like a Spike Cohen, like neocon. Like that was it. We're right. Americans are right. And it was driven even by the fact that my grandfather was a guerrilla fighter in World War II, because it's really hard to say how bad American involvement in World War II was, knowing that I wouldn't be alive if America hadn't fought in World War II, right? My grandfather fought alongside American GIs, so he had an incredibly high opinion of American military might because as a Filipino, the only reason that he's alive is because of the Americans, right? But I think first, when I wasn't able to join the military, I remember thinking like, man, like that really sucks. But I still was pretty conservative. Then I became even stronger of a Christian, so it became like real like religious right. And in 2008 in California, they had the H campaign, or Hate on Hate campaign. It was the gay marriage campaign. And the people that I had associated with had become so ugly towards it. And my view on my faith was so different, right? There's no hate. I don't have room for any hate in my Christian faith. So how can we as Christians be so hateful towards people that want to marry, regardless of what we think about marriage, right? I don't have any room to hate those people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was just gonna say, I follow that, because like some people do have the view that like marriage, what it is between a man and a woman, and maybe a civil union or something is different between same sex partners, but it's not so much the the use of the words, or the terminology, or whatever, or the semantics of it that were bothersome to you. It was the actual feelings and attitudes and hatred that people had for those who
we're different. It's
yeah.
crazy. And I would even describe it like this. Like, I don't know if I can and I'm a little different now. So at the time it was like, I don't know if I can reconcile homosexual marriage in my faith, but I certainly can't reconcile hate into my faith. And if I'm going to be wrong on one of these two issues, I'm going to be wrong on marriage, not on hating somebody.
That's pretty profound, and I might cite this, what we're discussing right now, in future conversations, because there is something to that. Like, do you want? Yeah, I mean, you might technically have a proper position, or a moral position, or a position that makes sense on something, but if you're attaching hate to that position, I don't think that's going to benefit anyone in the long run in society.
No, when I make it to the pearly gates, I don't. Do I want to have to explain that I refuse to hate gay people, or that I chose to hate gay people? To stand up for the sanctity of marriage, which is, like I mentioned earlier, you're more likely to get divorced as a Christian than you are as an atheist.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how it wasn't really one moment. Was there any other moments, or big chunks of what changed your
that
worldview?
started like, so that moment is when I started kind of like separating my faith from like my beliefs, my political beliefs. They're kind of independent of one another. I don't want anyone to ever think that they can't vote for me because I'm a Christian. That would, to me, be the worst representation of my faith I can ever have, or my political beliefs I can have. But then, yeah, just moving forward there. Okay, so then, we're wrong on this. Then I was drinking a lot, and I said I don't want to drink anymore. So somebody said, why don't you try smoking? And so I haven't drank in over 10 years, but I like to smoke. Yeah, but I've never. So I'm 37 years old, and I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I've never even hit a cigarette before. I've never even been interested in it, but I like to smoke marijuana. Like, it's my thing. So I started realizing, holy shit, dude, like, we're putting people in jail for this. So there's just another,
right.
Wow.
I mean, we're preaching to the choir to each other, but the liberty-minded, the position that achieves the most liberty in society tends to be the right one, whether you're talking about cops, or how to even just treating people who have different values than you, the live and let live philosophy, or the victimless crime thing with just people wanting to smoke a plant. Just like all these things, I could see it, like how all the pieces come together in it. And you don't, not everyone becomes like, red pilled or woken up out of their political slumber, like from a Ron Paul or a political event or something like that. Sometimes it is just a gradual thing, just like these little moments, and some more profound than others in our lives, that like culminate into us like being like, oh, I don't want to be a neoconservative Christian conservative anymore. I can be a Christian libertarian. I could be apolitical. You could be other. You don't have to fall into these two boxes that the powers that be would like us to fit into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people, so in little things, it's the way that we present ourselves as libertarians. So I was on a on a right-wing leaning talk show, and the guy kind of tried to like. It's funny because they always think that they're gonna catch you on something, right? And he tried to catch me on my view on drugs. And I'm pretty good at not letting myself get caught, man. So he says, "Oh, wait, are you one of those libertarians who just think all drugs should be legal?" And I said, "Listen, man, I don't know if all drugs should be legal, but I certainly know that we shouldn't be throwing addicts in prisons." And he stopped and looked at me, and it was like a oh shit moment. Like he's like, "Dude, that changes everything." I said, "Yeah, it has nothing to do with the drugs. It's, are we throwing sick people in jail?" Regardless
crazy.
of what I think about this, like we shouldn't be throwing sick people in jail.
We have to remember that, like, even though like what you're saying to me at this point, sort of 10 years into this movement, seems like obvious common sense, but this is actually new information. Like people don't get these sort of like alternative views in their lives. Like we have to keep that in mind. Like what you're describing is something that needs to be said, that this is really a health issue and not should be dealt with. It should not be dealt with from a criminal perspective. Says
No,
me.
and the criminal justice system is really broken. I've had people try to tell me that I was anti-cop, and that couldn't be farther from the truth either. Like I certainly believe that police work should be the most honorable work that we can do. The problem is that very dishonorable people are able to become police officers.
Right.
I ran against the guy that I become good friends with here in Kern County. He was the third candidate in our supervisor race. His name's Peter Graff. And in my opinion, Peter Graff is the best cop Kern County's ever seen. He went in front of the grand jury and testified against racism and corruption involving his own police chief in his department.
That's rare. That is super rare. And maybe not even just for cops, just in any industry. Like people tend to protect their own at all costs.
Yeah. And so, I'm trying to work on him running for sheriff in 4 years because I think he would just be awesome. But I think it's important that it's okay as libertarians to find cops like that and to put them on a pedestal, like show them off, because what happens is I think we get into like these conversations. We just want to shit on the police all of the time. And we ignore when there are good officers, this man lost his entire career.
Right. Being a libertarian, what we're supposed to be doing is judging everyone as an individual based on who they are, how they treat people, how they live their lives. And, I guess when we say like you're anti-cop, you're not even, I mean, people could see that like you hate all cops, all individual cops, but really it's the institution. I think what we're really going after. But cops themselves, police officers, they are individuals and should be judged as such. But like the American police force or something, there's got to be a word or a term we can use to just broadly criticize the law enforcement system without making people think that, oh, you hate every single cop. You hate the guy directing traffic on your corner who's done nothing wrong and has a clean record from start to finish in his career or up to that point.
Or I hate the guy that's coaching one of my kids' sports teams on his spare time. How dare he? Like give me, like, it's unreal to me. Like these guys are, when you find a good one, you have to protect them. They're assets, and you have to make sure that they're encouraged enough to continue to stand up against the corruption that they see. I was
just gonna say that exact. Sorry to cut you off, but that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like, there's instead of giving them the metaphorical finger from across the way or ignoring them or talking shit behind their back, you're better off becoming friends with them in the stands at your kids' baseball games, and then introducing the other cop to the sheriff who does a good job, just like, getting these building these relationships, and like you said, like what these relationships is what kind of like improves the community, I think, is when people are accountable, basically, and have positive influences.
Yes, absolutely. And just being involved, man. I mean, so one of the cool things here in this small town is my family's involved in everything. My wife is helping plan a Christmas event right now. You know, it's so we're trying to be the change here locally. We don't have very many police officers in my community right now. We Kern County, just like everywhere else, has a shortage of officers, but also like everyone else, I think they're ignoring why people aren't becoming police officers.
And why do you think that is?
Because of the corruption, I think, quite frankly. Like here in Kern County specifically, Donnie Youngblood's a creep, man. Our sheriff, he sucks. The week after the primary election, he had an op-ed with the LA Times, and in it he admits, he says, I know why we can't hire people, and it's because nobody wants to work for, it's because we have a terrible reputation. But up until that point, it's constantly been, we just don't pay enough. Man, the reputation is way more important than the pay. People don't want to have to go to work and defend their choice of police departments. They just want to be able to go to work, and that's why, I think what's happening is you're only getting left with the shitty cops. Because the good cops are going to move on.
Say that again.
The good cops are going to move on.
Right. Wow, what a journey. Very cool to have you in the LP and the Mises Caucus and running for local positions and starting on city council, and you've had a profound impact on a lot of people, it sounds like, and vice versa. And I'm happy that I got to meet you and become friends with you, and that we're getting to chat right now. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'm sure you have a very busy day and a lot to do and take care of. Anything else we should cover, or do you want to mention before I kind of let you go or whatever?
Man, what's left? Who have I not talked about?
I got one random. I'll ask you my survey question. I try to ask everybody this because it's just interesting. It always gets interesting answers. Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in aliens or UFOs? And have you had any experiences with either?
Oh man, so I believe in both, man. I certainly think that if you believe in angels, you have to believe in ghosts, right? I don't know that I've ever had any experiences with them. I think that they're there, and I did belong to a church that certainly believes in things like exorcisms and stuff. So, I think that it happens, and I think it's really like my mom. She's described a situation when she was a kid living in the Philippines, where somebody in the village was sick. And she remembered, like, they thought everyone's saying, oh, it's a demon, but she says she remembers looking at the leg, and the leg was like pulsing, like visibly. So, I mean, I guess I'm not necessarily for disregarding people's testimonies.
You're open. Who knows? Yeah. There's a lot in this universe that's unexplainable. So that's kind of where I stand.
Like 7.8 billion years is how old the universe is estimated to be. So, I mean, are we suggesting that we're the only body of life anywhere? Like, I think that's like kind of selfish.
Yeah. So, well, yes, human-centric, self-centered, Earth-centric. So it sounds like you're open to ghosts, aliens, UFOs, but probably doesn't sound like you've had any personal experiences with any of those things.
Nah.
They only want to pursue people who, I guess, need to be haunted or need to be whatever, or for some reason maybe because you're strong in the mind or something, or you're open and are believers, so they only want to disprove the non-believers or punish those who need to be in some capacity, or reach out to those who need help. Maybe, I don't know. So
I do actually have a story for this. Actually, so when I was in junior high, I developed a twitch. It was like a bad one, like in my neck, like all day long. It was embarrassing. It was terrible. And my mom took me to a Catholic faith healer, and she told me that what I must have done is she described it as like spirits like at our school, and I must have like offended one of them. And I wore a crystal for years, and I had that twitch for years. It was shitty.
How did you shake it ultimately? If assuming the crystal may not have worked,
I don't even know, man. I just think at some point in my mid-20s, I don't twitch as much.
Yeah, it kind of grew out of it, or just
I
things
think so. Yeah.
I've known some people with some twitches over the years. Good stuff all around. I appreciate the time, appreciate you and all your hard work and the party and all the philanthropic work you've done over the years. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Can I actually so throw a shout out there for some work that we have going on in the party. The National Mises Caucus, we have the project Decentralized Revolution going on. Anyone, listen, like I ran for office with no experience. I learned how to tell my story. I learned how to tell it in an impactful way to help move people from emotion to policy, right? And I've actually been tagged to do that for the national party, which is pretty cool. I'm going to be one of the trainers for the candidate support program at the Mises Caucus level. Yeah, I'm going to be teaching people how to tell their stories, how to earn media appearances, and how to just really make connections with people that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Anyone can go to runaslibertarian.com and sign up to be a trainer. We'll be making appearances all over the country, and we'll have some online trainings to do. It's going to be pretty cool, man. And I know that you and Zach had talked about this on your last episode. Never in a million years would I have thought that I would be teaching other libertarians how to run for office.
We've gone through it.
And
learned a lot. Good stuff. What was that website again? And share anywhere else people can find or follow you, or plug anything else you want to. I'll give you the floor to do that.
Yeah. So runaslibertarian.com. It'll actually take you to the Mises Caucus page for the candidate support program. And of course, takehumanaction.com. I just encourage everybody to get involved, man. Get involved with something and do something, and make sure that you're spending time with people you love. Don't let yourselves get so caught up in the work to forget that what really matters is the people that you're working for. And that's who we love, right?
Yeah, spend time with people you love and serve others. That's kind of like something that's like going around in my head a lot lately. Just the idea of like serving others, not necessarily thinking about how can everything benefit me, how can I further my career or personal things or this or that. Just serve others. And I think when you prioritize serving others, I think the personal rewards start to come back to you, whether they be financial, emotional, spiritual, fulfillment. All these, I think all of them really is all the positive personal rewards come when you put others ahead of you, be it your family, community, friends, and just others in the world, trying to serve in small ways and big ways and in any way you can. And it's cool to hear you doing all those things in your life and in your career and the politics and all that. Anywhere people can find or follow you.
So I'm online. You can go to Instagram, Carden for Kern. Kelly Carden 14 is my Twitter handle. I'm on Facebook. Carden for
Is it the number 4, Carden for
Kern,
number 4, and then Kern, Keren, Carden, number 4, Keren. That's your Instagram, and you mentioned a couple other places. Good stuff all around. Thank you.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me on, man. Dude, so thanks for being willing to open up your home for a place for me to sleep last week.
Oh, for sure. Anytime. Hit me up whenever you need.
I will, man. There's some times where I might have some rough turnarounds, and it might be easier to sleep down in LA. So
yeah,
I will.
You're 85 miles is not around the corner, or whatever, but not too far.
It's time-wise, it's not that bad though. It takes me the same time to go 80 miles. It takes you to go 30 miles in Los Angeles.
That's true. Give yourself an hour to go anywhere in LA. But on that note, thank you again, and let's talk more soon.
Yeah, brother. We'll get together soon, man.
You got it. Later.
Later.
So there you have it, episode 133, and my conversation with Kelly Carden. Although he may be imperfect like all of us, Kelly is a good dude, and I am glad to know him and can call him a friend. I appreciate all his stories and his honesty and all of the selfless work he's done over the years to help others. But for everything about this show, please check out peoplewelovepodcast.com, at People We Love Podcast on Instagram. I am at Adam Choid on Instagram and Twitter. Tedeschi Trucks Podcast is my other podcast, at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram, TEDESCHI Trucks Podcast. TheEditedMovie.com is where my short film is playing right now. I think that's pretty much it. I think I got everything. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. More episodes coming soon, and let's talk soon. Later.